Greco-Roman mythology is fragmented by passion. If Zeus's ego was the thunder that announced the drama, Hera's frustration was the storm that consumed everything. The previous episode proved that Zeus, the king, was the most easily provoked of the gods, but the poetic truth was that his wife, Hera, the goddess of marriage, was condemned to an equally undignified and vengeful role due to Zeus's countless infidelities. She, the patron of the sacred union, lived surrounded by the echo of betrayal. Her anger was not an outburst of jealousy. It was the engine of a twisted justice, an antagonistic force seeking to restore an order that Zeus had pulverized with every disguise as a swan or a bull. Heracles, the son of Alcmene, was nothing more than a trophy, the bitterest proof of Zeus's tragic flaw, hamartia. And trophies must be destroyed. The pact was already sealed. The question was not whether revenge would come, but with what exquisite cruelty it would manifest. Hera did not seek the aid of Ares, the god of war, nor Apollo, the god of the sure arrow. For the total destruction of the soul, something more intimate, deeper than physical death is required. Madness is required. The goddess who would serve her was Lyssa, the personification of irrational rage, the younger sister of the Fury. Hera summoned her to her temple, which smelled of cold incense and accumulated betrayal. I want my husband's son, the hateful Heracles, to be consumed. I don't want his body. I want his mind. Turn him into a madman. Let him crawl under the weight of the worst possible act, an insurmountable moral dilemma, a choice that shatters his fundamental belief in himself. Lyssa, who was herself a personal descent into the underworld, gladly accepted. The goal was simple: to drive the antagonistic forces from negative to more negative. And there is nothing more negative than forcing a man to harm his own family. Meanwhile, Heracles had returned to Thebes. He had fulfilled the initial labors commanded by the cowardly Eurystheus, the king imposed by Zeus's vanity. He had fought the Nemean lion and the Lernaean hydra. He was at the peak of his glory, hero, husband, and father. But glory is, for the gods, a magnet for nemesis. Hera knew that for the blow to be effective, the victim had to be at his height, where the outcome would be most painful. This was the perfect climax for a tragedy. In his home, Heracles felt happiness, that human emotion the gods envy. He felt love for his wife and pride for his children. His body was that of a god, but his heart was entirely mortal, and therefore fragile. Lyssa arrived like a dark thought, like a sudden mist, the premonition of a sudden drop in the retention graph of his life. She entered Heracles' mind, not as a voice, but as a false belief. She whispered to him that his wife and children were not his, but the offspring of Eurystheus, his enemy. She told him that his house was not a home, but the palace of a tyrant that needed to be deposed. Heracles looked at his wife, Megara, and saw the queen of Mycenae that his father Zeus had dishonored. He looked at his children and saw the heirs of the cowardice that forced him to serve. Madness was an unexpected revelation that spun the entire plot of his life toward horror. The great hero, the demigod, the man who had challenged monsters, could not challenge his own mind. The scene was brief, brutal. The script must be concise, focusing on a single element to be impactful. Heracles, in his frenzy, grabbed his bow. His own children, terrified, hid from their father. One of them, believing his father was playing, rushed toward him. Heracles, seeing him as an enemy soldier, crushed him against the ground. And so, one after the other. The sound of wood cracking, the silence following the screams, was the true star of the emotional sound design. When the goddess Lyssa withdrew, leaving behind only the emptiness that rage leaves, Heracles awoke. The silence in the house was more deafening than any battle. He was the hero who had killed his family. His ghost was no longer a memory but a fresh, bloody reality. This act of horror was Zeus's true punishment. Hera's revenge was perfect. The king of Olympus could not punish her without exposing his own lie and his cowardice. And Heracles, condemned by an oath that forced him to serve the pusillanimous Eurystheus, was now a man without home or purpose. His only way back to the light was the quest, the only way to purify himself of this new descent into the underworld. was total servitude. The 12 labors of Heracles, the epic the world remembers, were not an act of voluntary glory, but the penance for the madness that Hera had designed to humiliate her husband. The narrative tension is at its maximum. Can a hero recover from such a dark act? What role will Poseidon play in this escalation of provocation? And most importantly, madness has been unleashed. Can it be locked away again? Hera had won the battle against Zeus's ego, but unleashing madness comes at a price, and the cosmos never forgets a debt. The final punishment of the goddess of marriage was yet to come. Find out in the next episode of The Greek Gods Were So Easy to Provoke.